Hello, welcome back to Ever17 out of Infinity. This is really crazy. We got some parallel time thing happening, I think. It's scaring me. Huh? I shook my head back and forth. I kept shaking my head. Again, I shook my head back and forth. No, nobody is picking on me. I was looking wildly around in all directions. We were in front of the emergency room. Sarah was standing right in front of me. But I didn't see anyone else. I said nothing, but ran into the room. No one was there. She wasn't lying on the examination table. Sarah's eyebrows were raised questioningly. I didn't run away. I just wanted to check something is all. I stood to the side of the table and slid my hand across its surface. There was no warmth.
大腿骨に損傷、複雑骨折しているかもしれません。それと動脈が切れています。切開縫合が必要でしょう。なんとかやってみるよ。麻酔は用意します。他にもレーザーメス、鉗子、縫合紙、必要なものはすべてこの部屋にありますから。蔵なり、邪魔。
All these voices jumped back and forth in my head. Voices, voices, voices. I twisted my head and turned, looking around the inside of the emergency room, looking slowly. The noise from before seemed like a dream. Seemed? What am I thinking? It was only a dream, just a dream.
ねえ、教えてよ。何を確かめたかったの
？I looked straight into Sarah's eyes and answered. I wanted to see if it was real or a dream. I had a terrible dream.
Why you met that?
Tsugumi hurt her leg really bad. There was flooding in the storage area, and when she went to fix it, a big chunk of metal fell on her. And then Tsugumi, her leg got trapped by the metal. And she got a huge gash on her right thigh. I could see the yellow of her fat, the red color of her muscle and white bone, her artery, lymph nodes, even nerve endings, all hanging out and pulsating like rubber tubes. The whole area was covered in a sea of blood.
なんか聞いてるだけで貧血になりそう。そんな残酷な夢、よく平気で見れるよね。
Well, it's not as if I wanted to see it.
それで悪夢にうなされた少年は思わず救護室の外に飛び出しちゃったってわけね。まあ確かにそんな夢を見たらワンワンワンワンと泣きじゃくるのも無理はないか。
Bawling? Was I crying?
泣いてたじゃない。3歳児みたいにヒステリックな声上げて。
That's when I realized. On my cheeks and chin, there was something that felt cold. There was a small drop of moisture sparkling on my eyelash. I hurriedly wiped away my tears. So I had been crying. It had all happened while I was sleeping, so I had no idea why I had been crying.
少年、ちょっと気になったことがあるんだけど。今さ、倉庫で浸水事故が発生してって言ったよね。
Yeah.
それ本当に起きたんですけど。
What?
少年が眠ってる間に倉庫のパイプが破裂して水が流れ込んできたの。
When I was sleeping? What was that supposed to mean? I couldn't fully grasp what was going on from what I'd heard. My mind froze.
でも安心して。修理は無事に完了したから。
What about Tsugumi? I didn't think it was possible, but I asked anyway.
もちろんピンピンしてるよ。 修理の大部分はつぐみがやってくれたの。
Really? For some reason I felt relieved. I wondered if it was because my dream had been so real. No, wait. Dream? Why would I have a dream about the warehouse flooding? I was sleeping. As though she had read my thoughts, Sarah said.
それにしても不思議なこともあるもんだよね。少年、幽体離脱でもしてたんじゃないの？
She said as if she were making fun of me. But honestly, Sarah probably didn't take the possibility seriously. My mind was turning slowly, but hadn't started working normally again. Something was preventing me from thinking. Out-of-body experience. If I could do that, I could peep down girls' underwear all I wanted. I made a stab at a joke. The fact that I could do so surprised me somewhat.
バカ。
Moron.
スカートの中ならまだしも、パンツの中なんて覗くんじゃないの。
Sarah whacked me on the head a couple of times. Thinking the whole situation odd, I started to laugh.
しかし、元気そうだよね、少年。昨べはあのままあっちの世界へ行っちゃうんじゃないかと思ってヒヤヒヤしたけど、その様子だと全然問題ないみたいね。あれ？覚えてないの？少年、ブクブクと泡吹いて倒れてたじゃない。
What?
浜辺に打ち上げられたカニみたいにね。チョキチョキ。たけしに呼ばれてみんなが集まってきた時にはすでにそんな状態だったの。でもってしょうがないからみんなで少年を担ぎ上げてこの救護室に運び込んだってわけ。了解？
I got it.
君は知らないと思うけどさ、とにかくすごい大騒ぎだったんだから。まったく人騒がせなやっちゃの。
Sarah slapped me gently on the cheek. My head turned to the side with the force, and from that position I asked, "Hey, where was I passed out?"
更衣室の鏡の前だよ。
The changing room. It was a rectangular room, and stuck to the back wall was a large mirror. The bench had been returned to its original position. I walked up to the mirror. I didn't recognize my face. I didn't recognize this kid. I touched my eyebrow with my right hand. He touched his eyebrow with his left hand. A, B, C, D. The sounds that I uttered came to my ears. The kid in the mirror mouthed the exact same words, but of course I couldn't hear his voice. I reached out my left hand to touch him. He put out his right hand and did the same thing. My nails hit the hard surface of the glass with a click, but I couldn't reach him. Looking closely, I could see a face floating over his left shoulder. 2 pairs of eyes stared intensely at me. It had to be an evil spirit. Maybe he was even being possessed. It's so sad. He's been taken over by a demon. And as soon as I said that to myself, I realized that he was looking at me. What? I'm being possessed? It's Sarah! I jumped about 3 feet in the air, bending backwards as I leapt. Well, when did you get here?
拙者にとっては足音を消して忍び寄るなんてことはたやすいことなのでござるよ。にーに。
Really? Apparently, the person who'd been looking over my shoulder was Sarah.
だって少年、何にも言わないで出て行っちゃうんだもん。
So you went and followed me?
うん。
Sarah had grabbed onto her tied-up hair with both hands and was swinging it back and forth.
鏡がどうかした？
She pointed to the mirror with the tip of her hair. Well,
ちょっと何？
I pulled Sarah by the arm over to stand in front of the mirror. Both of our images were reflected on the mirror surface. The left and right side of her face was reflected back in reverse, but there was no mistaking it was her. My face, on the other hand. Hey, who's that reflected in the mirror?
はい？意味がわからないんですけど。
This kid. The kid standing next to you. Who is he?
はあ、また例の厄介な発作が始まっちゃったわけね。
Come on, I'm being serious. Is this really my face?
君の顔じゃなくて誰の顔だっていうのさ。
I guess you're right. I knew the answer, but I still needed to check. This kid was me. The face reflected in the mirror was mine.
大丈夫？
Yeah, I'm fine. But I'm also not fine.
どっちなのよ。
The pouting Sarah was in the mirror. I looked at her figure in the reflection. She looked back at me. Our gazes intersected and overlapped at the same space at the same time. I couldn't remember my own face. I couldn't remember, and I still can't remember it. Of course, I understand that the person reflected in the mirror is me, but how can I say it? It doesn't feel real. That's why I passed out in front of the mirror last night. The face reflecting back at me in the mirror felt like someone else, someone I didn't know.
でもさ、何も泡吹くほど驚くようなことじゃないんじゃないの？ある日突然鏡の中に救いようのないへちゃむくれな顔が映ってたとしたら、確かに私だってそっとしちゃうと思うけどさ、少年の顔はそんなに悪くはないんだし、逆にああ僕はこんなにまともな顔をしてたんだって普通だったら安心すると思うんだけどな。
Sarah glanced at the mirror and took a good look at my face.
私どっちかっていうと好きだよ、この顔。
And so saying, Sarah pointed the tip of her hair
な
at
んで
me.
か教えてあげようか。君の顔ちょっと私に似てるから。
Oh, I look like you? I stared intently at Sarah's face.
そう思わない？
Suddenly a vast swirling pattern came into my mind. It spun round and round, round and round, paralyzing my ability to think. I don't think. It took all my will to mumble just that.
そうかな。目元のあたりとか似てると思うんだけどな。あ、なんでそんな嫌そうな顔するかな。褒めてるんだよ。っていうか、ある意味自画自賛でもあるんだけど。
Sarah started smiling shyly, and then all of a sudden she tickled my nose with the tip of her hair. Hey, what are you doing? I jumped back away from her. Sarah smiled mischievously. The smell of her hair seeped into my mind. It was a smell somehow so familiar, almost animal and private. The conference room. I was sitting in a chair, stuffing my mouth with a chicken I'd grown bored with the chicken sandwiches, so I invented my own version, a slice of bread between two pieces of meat. It was definitely a needed change of pace. Sarah was sitting directly in front of me. Sarah was eating straight from a head of lettuce with nothing but ketchup as a topping. Muttering in voice so small I could barely hear, she was saying, "I'm not getting enough vegetables. I'm just not getting enough vegetables. Say, where did everybody else run off to?" With ketchup smeared around her lips, Sarah answered me.
空は制御室、ノッキョ先輩は警備室。たけしは私が見た時にはメリーゴーランドに乗って一人で遊んでた。つぐみは相変わらず行方不明。倉庫の修理が完了したからみんな適当に一息入れてるんだと思うよ。
So what do you have planned next, Sarah?
別にどうもしないよ。ただひたすらレタスを食べながら救出されるのを待つだけ。
Sarah kept munching the lettuce, making a crunching sound as she bit into the core. By the way, Sarah, what were you doing up till now?
見張り。
Watching over me?
昨べ少年を救護室に運び込んだ後、私たちは交代で少年の見張りをすることになったの。突然暴れ出したりするんじゃないかと思って、その用心のために。で、ついさっきまで私がその当番だったのね。だけどちょっと目を離してる隙に少年がいなくなっちゃって、あれどこ行ったんだと思って救護室の外に出てみたら。
When you found me crying?
そういうこと。
Finishing off my sandwich, I reached over to the lettuce in Sarah's hands and ripped off a leaf. Using my index finger, I wiped off some excess ketchup, smeared it on Sarah's mouth, dabbed it on my lettuce, and ate it. What should I do next? I muttered to myself. Oh, okay. Just sitting here is getting boring. Go see you in the security office. Go to the warehouse with Sarah. I'll be with Sarah for now. Well, I guess I'll take Sarah to visit the warehouse. Had there really been an accident which had flooded the warehouse? I wanted to see for myself. Sarah? Think you could join me for a bit? Sarah spoke with her face still covered in ketchup. Sure. I decided to wait for Sarah to finish her meal. While waiting, I asked her a question. So tell me, why ketchup and not dressing? Her answer was straightforward. Inside of the warehouse, the air was filled with a sticky, humid smell, and the floor was covered with enough water to just cover our shoes. Around the room lay pipes, many of which look to have been recently welded to repair damage. So there really was some kind of flooding here. Of course I believed you, but there's a difference between hearing something and seeing it for yourself. I mean, there's way more impact. You know, the impact from realizing I saw this all in a dream. Well, I don't know if I could really call it a premonition or not, but I mean, Tsugumi didn't get hurt, right? And besides, I said this and stopped, sweeping my eyes across the room. The scene was almost exactly as I had dreamed it, but one thing was different. There had been a pile of scrap material stacked high, but now it was stacked on the floor. In my dream, the warehouse was completely submerged in water, but by the looks of it here, everything seems fine. I wonder if you could still call that a premonition. Sarah? Was the warehouse arranged like this from the start? See those containers and metal pipes lined up over there? I asked her while pointing to the rows of scrap metal. Were those stacked up in one tall pile before? Yeah, I guess you're right. Besides that one point, nothing else seemed out of place. Except I was amazed how calm I felt analyzing the situation. Premonitions, the phantom girl, the mirror affair, amnesia. Considering the countless number of strange things I had experienced, I was surprisingly calm. Not thinking such strange events as strange was in itself strange. Was I just desensitized to everything? Or maybe I just had never been the type to think too deeply about things. I didn't know why, but I felt fine about the situation. I walked a loop around the entire warehouse and returned to where I started, only to find Sarah was gone. At that same moment, I heard a sound. Bang, 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 like something pounding powerfully against a steel wall. I searched for the origin of the sound. A small door suddenly jumped into my field of vision. In front of the door stood Sarah. Sarah! I let out a yell and ran to her. What happened? I asked, standing at Sarah's side. Sarah acted like there was nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, she seemed so normal that normal didn't begin to describe it well enough. The bashing sound continued, unabated. It was coming from beyond the door. It sounded like someone was throwing their body against the door, and they weren't holding back. It was an explosive force, almost animal in intensity. The sound reverberated to the core of my body, rattling my brain. Who is it? Hey, who's there? I yelled at the door. Confused, Sarah reached out and touched the door panel. The door opened. Nobody's in here. The room inside was dark. But even before I could turn on the lights, I could tell there was no one inside. So then, what was that noise just now? I turned around and looked at Sarah. What do you mean, no clue? I'm just asking, what was that noise just now? A noise, noise. The sound of someone ramming into the door, that noise. What? Sarah said this to me with a scornful look on her face. What are you talking about?
その言葉、そっくりそのままお返ししますけど。どういうこと？私の名前を知ってたり、予知みたいなことを言ってみたり、いるはずのない女の子に会った？鏡の中の自分が別人に思える？で、今度はおまけに幻聴ですか。悪いけど、もうそういうのには付き合いきれないのよね。
Hearing sounds that aren't there? You mean you couldn't hear it, Sarah?
答えるのもめんどくさいけど、聞こえなかった。
So why were you standing in front of that door?
だから別に理由なんかないってば。ただ扉の向こう側が、つまりこの部屋の中がどうなってるのか知りたかっただけ。
Are you serious?
そんなことで嘘ついてどうすんのよ。まだマップの中で行ったことのない場所があったら誰だって行きたくなるでしょ。まだ開けてない宝箱があったら誰だって開けてみたくなるでしょ。まだ話しかけてない村人がいたら誰だって話しかけてみたくなるでしょ。
I see. Sarah's discomfort showed clearly on her face. Her eyes were frightened. So Really? I don't know what came over me. I decided to try to play it off by laughing. Not thinking strange events as strange was becoming not so strange after all. When enough coincidences happen one after the other, they stop being coincidence and start to become unavoidable. What's more, having encountered strange phenomena so often they seemed like old acquaintances, I started to think that nothing could faze me. What a time to suddenly become philosophical. Spiritual awakening, enlightenment, nirvana. I felt like there was nothing left to be afraid of. My laughing voice reverberated throughout the room. Seeing my laughing had only proved to increase Sarah's frustration and doubt in me, but I didn't care. And the look she gave me, like I was some kind of weirdo, well, that didn't bother me either. I began to dance lightly, circling around the small room like some Polynesian tribal dancer. But it made me dizzy, so I stopped. Out of breath, I leaned against the nearest wall for support. In front of me, I noticed a small square window. From outside the window, faint moonlight shone in. Moonlight? Sarah must have noticed the direction of my gaze because she began to walk toward the window. Speaking toward her backside, I said, "Why would there be a window in a place like this?" Sarah's feet stopped.
これが窓に見えるの?
She said as she spun around. Isn't it a window? Because the light...
光?
Sarah shuffled backwards and planted her back against the wall.
光って今言ったよね?
Yeah.
これが光ってるように見えるの?
As if being called by the light, I began to walk toward it. I knocked a few times against the window with my knuckles. I stopped in front of the window. Except it was not a window at all. It was a steel door buried in the wall. ねえ、答えてよ。光ってるように見えるの? Yeah, it does. Sarah stood beside me and put her hand on the steel door. I also reached out and placed the flat of my hand on the door. The door seemed to sizzle with a penetrating heat. Without changing our pose, our eyes met. Sarah started to speak, but hesitated. She then opened her lips to try again, but stammered. Her breathing became rough. She seemed a little agitated. A red light seemed to emanate from her body. So why does it look like it's shining? It was a very innocent, almost naive question. Without answering me, Sarah removed her hand from the door. I removed mine as well. 2 faint handprints were left imprinted on the square steel door. 少年、これ見える? Muttering, Sarah gently removed something from her pocket. A flame burned. In an instant, the whole scene changed, and Sarah's face was lit up in red. I realized that what Sarah had taken out was a pendant and a lighter. Without saying a word, Sarah brought the flame and the pendant in front of my eyes. Inside the pendant floated a holographic image of a man I'd never seen before. "Who's this?" When I asked this, Sarah's hand began to quiver. The flame shimmered. And from this a large shadow was projected on the wall, which also flickered.
そう、見えるんだ。
Sarah shut the lighter.
少年、昨日さ、ナッキ先輩が発電室の扉を開けようとしたとき、止めたよね。
Yeah.
どうして？なんで止めたの？
Wait, hold on a second. Weren't you just telling me how tired you were of all my premonitions and illusions?
あれは予知だったの？
I can't say. I mean, I don't really know. It's just that I thought it would be dangerous for her to open the door. Sarah looked at the ceiling. She then looked at the square door in the wall, then the pendant held tightly in her hand, then finally looked slightly upward into my eyes. There was a long silence. Sarah looked deep in thought, or maybe as though she wasn't thinking anything. Okay. The only sound was her steady, measured breaths. At last, she spoke.
まさか、そんなわけないよね。はあ。
Sarah took a deep breath and put away the lighter and pendant. We left the room. Sarah took a big stretch. I repeated my question to her. Sarah, whose image was that in the pendant? As she walked toward the exit, she answered.
太陽星人。
After that, Sarah and I headed to the conference room. We didn't have any specific objective in mind. Actually, we made for the conference room because we didn't have any objective. It wasn't that anyone had said we would meet there. Somehow, it had just become our meeting place and hangout. We were all there. Sora and Takeshi teased me, saying that the night before I had been flailing around like a crab on its back. They said that I had worried them, but that they thought I looked better. It was almost exactly the same thing I had heard from Sarah. They asked why I had gone crazy when I saw the mirror, but I avoided giving a clear-cut answer. I didn't think that I could get them to understand a situation as complex as that by telling them the real reason. It appeared that Takeshi and Sora were satisfied with my evasive explanation. And then small talk started. Strangely, we only talked idly, gossiping about things and not touching on Limu at all. We talked about the best movies we'd ever seen, and why do whales strand themselves on the beach in groups, and what was the truth behind the assassination of JFK, as well as which whether forks or chopsticks were better. Topics changed often, and we talked about a wide range of things, from the serious to the silly. In short, we were just killing time. We tried to fill in the time by keeping our mouths moving. I didn't participate much in the conversation. I just kind of nodded from time to time and laughed along with everyone. It's not that I was necessarily thinking about anything else. I just thought of it all as a painless way to kill time. In the group, there was one other person who was just as quiet as myself, even more so since she didn't open her mouth once. It was Tsugumi. Tsugumi looked as furious as ever. She had a constantly dissatisfied look, making it seem as if she had been dissatisfied from the day she was born and was probably destined to stay that way. I figured if she were that annoyed, she shouldn't come to where everyone had gathered, but of course I couldn't say that to her. Tsugumi glanced at me at a rate of once every 2 minutes. In the afternoon, 2 days before, the 1st of May, she had been short with me. She had told me not to talk to her. However, her looking at me about once every 2 minutes was totally at odds with those words, and seemed like a sign saying, "Speak with me." Her glances unnerved me, and I was unable to focus my attention on the conversation. Eventually, the 4 others got tired of talking, and gradually the conversation slowed down. Finally, the talking ground to a halt completely. 5 hours had passed since we had come to the conference room. Everyone was silent. Yu rested her chin on her hands and watched a plant in the corner of the room. Sarah put her face on the table and closed her eyes. Takeshi stood by the window and stared at the ocean. Sora was not there. She had gone back to the control room. Tsugumi had just stood up. She headed toward the exit. She touched the panel to open and close the door. Just before she left the room, she looked at me again. It bothered me. I couldn't let it not bother me. A while after Sugumi had gone out, I'm going to the bathroom. Saying that to everybody, I followed Sugumi. I followed the sound of water splashing and soon found Sugumi. She was walking ahead of me in a curved corridor. I ran to Sugumi and asked her, "Hey, why do you keep looking at me?" Sugumi didn't stop walking. She didn't even look at me. I stepped ahead of her and stood in her way. "You were shooting sideways glances at me, right? And then you glanced at me when you left the conference room.
だから
So, well..."
ええ、私は確かにあなたを見てたわ。でも、だったらあなただって私のことを見てたんじゃないの？そうじゃなければ、私の視線に気づくわけがないんだから。
You're right.
じゃあ、お互い様じゃない。
But you started watching me first.
見ちゃいけないの？
No problem, but...
あなたは誰かに見つめられると潮の柱になってしまうような得意体質の持ち主？
No.
そう、よかった。
Saying that, Sugumi started to walk. I blocked her way, holding out my arm. Wait a minute. Don't change the subject. What I wanted to know was the reason why you were glancing
理
at
由が
me.
なきゃダメなの？人を見ることに理由が必要なの？
You were trying to change the topic again.
じゃあ、あなたはどうしてそんなくだらない質問をするの？
Because I want to know
何が？
about you, Sugumi. Sugumi, you want to say something to me, don't you? Sugumi looked down. She dragged her leg slightly on the ground behind her. Their ripples spread over the surface of water. Sugumi's eyes followed the direction ripples spread absently. She looked up. We stared at each other. Sugumi pushed her hair back softly with her little
言い
finger
たい
and
こと
said,
はたくさんある。でも今はまだ言えないの。
She spoke in mild, calm tone. Hey, Sugumi, why do you keep trying to hide so many things? You can't trust us yet?
できない。
Then why did you help us with repairs when the flooding accident
私
happened
は手伝っ
today?
てなんかいない。
What?
私が修理をして他のみんながその手伝いをしたの。
You can look at that any way you want. It's not important. What is important is that you tried to help us anyway, right? Sugumi said it simply.
私はあなたたちのことを信用してないだけなの。別に恨んでるわけでも憎んでるわけでもない。危険な事態が発生したら協力するのは当たり前でしょ。私のことはともかくとして人が死んでいくのを黙って見ているわけにはいかないから。特にこんな状況ではね。
It was an unexpected answer. Little by little, Sugumi might have been seeing our side of things. Alright then. I'll ask you a different question. You show yourself around us often, even though you're saying that you don't trust us, right? If you doubt us, you don't have to hang out with us. You can act on your own. Sugumi, you actually want to be buddies with us, don't you? I was kind of taking a gamble. If she had answered back like something, like, fine, if that's what you want, I'll never show my face again, then that would have been the end of things. I waited for her reaction. Sugumi laughed. She kept shaking her head and laughing hard. What's so funny?
だって仲良しって小学生じゃあるまいし。私あなたが思ってるよりもずっと年上なのよ。
Sugumi covered her mouth as she kept laughing. Hey, stop laughing. I am being serious. If I'm wrong, then what is it? If you don't want to be buddies with us, then why do you
教え
come
てほしい。
to where everybody is? Yeah.
だったら教えてあげてもいいけど、その代わり一つだけ質問に答えてほしいの。あなたジュエルチョコって知ってる？
What?
ジュエルチョコ。
I don't know about it. I don't know. I answered honestly.
ジュエルチョコは何の変哲もないただのチョコレート。たった一つの特徴はおまけとしておもちゃの指輪がついてくること。
I see.
そのおもちゃの指輪は全部で34種類あるの。それらを全て集めようと思ってひたすらチョコを買い続けなくちゃいけない。でもこれってちょっと変だと思わない？主従関係が逆転しちゃってるのよ。本来ならチョコの方が主で指輪の方が従だったはずなのよ。指輪を集めている人にとってはチョコの方が副次的な存在なの。
So you mean that chocolate becomes something extra after the rings? But so what? What does that have to do with what we were talking about? I tilted my head.
私がみんなのところに行くのはみんなに会うことを目的としてるわけじゃないの。私はただ
Shigumi stopped talking. The smile was gone from her face. She stared at me with a serious look. It was a tense look. Just looking at her deep and dark-colored eyes, I felt as if I were about to be absorbed. But I couldn't look away. I couldn't even budge. My body was stiff like a pillar of salt.
私はただ指輪を集めてるだけ。チョコはおまけなのよ。
As she said that, I didn't know why, but suddenly she touched my ear. She traced the outline of my ear and pinched my earlobe tenderly. In that moment, my body burst into fragments. I don't remember what happened after that. I just found myself in the middle of the corridor standing in a daze. Sugumi had disappeared at some point.
指輪を集めてるだけ。
Sugumi's voice echoed in my head. I wobbled back to the conference room. When I entered the room, only you and Sarah were there. They were lying on the table and breathing as if they were asleep. Their legs were facing me. I could almost see their underwear. But I was not interested in it. Not interested? I pretended not to be interested. I walked to the side of the table and shook Yu's body slightly. Yu opened her eyes, rubbing one of them with her hands. You'll catch a cold sleeping in a place like this. Saying that, Yu hugged Sarah's body tightly. Sarah said something in delirium, but she didn't seem to wake up. I figured they both had to be tired. Where's Takeshi? You mean the merry-go-round with the dolphins? Did he go alone? As I asked, I realized that I had already known the answer. Sora was in the control room. I had met Sugumi a minute ago. You and Sarah were holding each other like koalas in front of me. You answered me. Having a nice time? You might have been half in a dream. She closed her eyes slowly. I went up the emergency stairs and headed for the merry-go-round. I thought briefly that it would be nice to go to sleep between you and Sarah, but unfortunately I was not sleepy at all. Besides, I was curious about what was Takeshi doing at the merry-go-round. If I remembered right, Takeshi had been sitting on a dolphin earlier in the day as well. Sarah had told me that. I wondered if riding on the merry-go-round alone was fun. If that was something fun for him, Takeshi was kind of freaky. I could imagine Takeshi having fun by himself, but if he wasn't there for his amusement, then I wanted to know the reason why he was going to the merry-go-round so often. Anyway, I was itching to find out the truth. That's why I didn't mind climbing up 51 feet of stairs. I came out on a straight corridor. After I walked a while, I could see a door on the left side. There was a dolphin merry-go-round through the door. The door had been left open. I sneaked into the room, trying not to make a sound. Takeshi was there. He was alone, as I expected. Takeshi was all alone.
どこにいるんだよ。あのな、お前な。もう何なんだ。
He was wandering around in front of the merry-go-round as he screamed nonsense. It was as if he were chasing something invisible. He might have thought he was chasing butterflies over the flower garden. That was what it looked like to me.
そもそもお前だって分かってるはずだぞ。捕まえるって言ったって、俺はどうやってもお前を掴むことができないんだ。
Takeshi was talking to a fake dolphin, tropical fish, and seaweed. There was obviously something wrong with him. He was sicker than I imagined. It was no time to laugh. I was paralyzed with fear. I didn't even have the presence of mind to feel sorry for him. He's gone crazy because he's locked up in a place like this. We didn't even notice, but somewhere along the line he just snapped.
具合悪くなってないか？疲れてるんじゃないか？なんかやばいことになってないよな。
It seemed that Takeshi was worried about the dolphins. I clasped my hands together as if in a prayer pose. I decided to leave without saying anything. I decided to pretend I hadn't seen it and kept it to myself. I started walking toward the exit. As the distance between myself and Takeshi grew, I couldn't hear what he said. Only one thing reached me.
クローン砲？
And then my vision twisted crazily. Wait, maybe the attack hit before his voice did. I didn't know, but in any case, I lost my sense of balance. I couldn't tell what was up or down. It was such a sudden change that it threw me. I felt an urge to vomit and a headache. Who are you? Who am I? It was my voice, but it wasn't mine. I lost consciousness. I crashed to the floor. Was it me that fell, or someone else that wasn't me? I felt myself sinking into the ground. Was I sinking, or was the floor trying to swallow me? I didn't know. I didn't know.
クローン砲？
I didn't know.
クローン砲？クローン砲？クローン砲？
I melted into the pure white darkness. Konwa?
クローン砲です。
I don't know. I mean, I forgot.
2010年にそれまで禁止されていた人間のクローン受精は法律で認められました。現在では省庁の許可さえ得られれば誰でもクローン受精による不妊治療が受けられるようになっています。培養した体細胞から核を抜き取り、別のすでに核を抜き取ってある卵細胞の中にそれを移植し。
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
ご理解いただけましたか？
But what does that have to do with this? Clones develop separately. In other words, they are different entities. They're not the same person. They're more like
で
twins.
もその由来は単一です。
Sora spoke almost casually.
話を戻しますね。私は偏在している。同じ空間の中に、時間の中に複数の私が存在できるのです。例えば、倉成さんの前とココちゃんの前、あそことここに2人の私がいる。けれどそれは決してダブルではなく Y なのです。
Why?
そうですね。考えてみてください。もしもあなたという人格をそっくりそのままコピーすることができるとしたら、例えばあなたの脳に刻まれたすべての記憶、考え方、感じ方、人格、性格、感情、それらすべての情報を正確に忠実に摘出することができたとして、それを何らかの記憶媒体に複製し、しかもその機能を再現できるとしたら、その時本当のあなたはどこにいるのでしょうか。肉体に残ったままの人格が本当のあなた？それとも複製した人格が本当のあなた？正解はそのいずれにも本当のあなたがいるです。そう、あなたは分裂し2つになるのです。歴史的にはその瞬間から2人のあなたは別々の個体として同一時間軸上を歩んでいくことになります。けれどその道のりを振り返ってみれば、2つのあなたはある一点で結ばれていたことがわかるはずです。 それがつまり Y なのです。ダブルではなく Y。 あるポイントを起点として別々に分かれていく2つの自分をあなたは想像することができないかもしれません。しかしそれはすでに起こっていることなのです。あなたは常に絶え間なく訪れては過ぎ去っていく瞬間瞬間の中で何らかの選択を迫られています。 A の道を行くか B の道を行くか。ここにいるあなたが A の道を歩んできたとしても、別の時間軸上では B の道を歩んできたあなたが存在するかもしれません。そして A の道のあなたも B の道のあなたもあなたであることに変わりはない。ただ A の道にいるあなたは B の道にいるあなたのことを知りません。知る手段がないからです。同様に B の道にいるあなたも A の道にいるあなたのことには気づかないでしょう。なぜだかわかりますか？
Tell me if this is basically it. The me on path A that you were talking about is one of the branches of the Y, and the me on path B is the other branch. To make it easier to understand, let's say that this is all two-dimensional or on a flat plane. In this case, both my A and B cells would be two-dimensional beings. As two-dimensional beings, they wouldn't have an accurate awareness of their two-dimensional world at any time. Just like a person in a three-dimensional world can't keep track of all 6 sides of a die in real time. That means, let's see. Dang, I lost my train of thought. In other words, basically, it means this. The person at one end of the Y and the person at the other end of the Y branch can't really be aware of each other in real time in order to know what is happening at the other end of the Y. You have to extract yourself from the two-dimensional point and view the Y from a three-dimensional space. Until you can do that, even if you understand it mentally, there is no way to confirm whether both A and B cells exist.
ほぼ正解ですね。続けます。
Sora said this in a matter-of-fact tone.
今、倉成さんが意味軸もおっしゃったように、二次元的な存在は二次元平面から脱出し、三次元空間内からその平面を見下ろさない限り、二次元の全体像を把握することはできません。脱出が可能となった時、その時初めて自分が Y の字の一部であったことに気づき、さらに枝分かれしたもう一人の自分がいることにも気づけるのです。まとめましょう。N 次元的な存在が N 次元の全体像を把握するためには N プラス1次元空間へと脱出する必要がある。もちろんこれは3次元空間内においても当てはまります。3次元的な存在が3次元の全体像を把握するためには4次元空間へと脱出する必要がある。つまり倉成さんが枝分かれした他の自分がいることに気づくためには4次元空間へと飛び出してこの私たちがいる3次元空間内を見下ろさなければならないのです。この場合の4次元空間とはミンコフスキー時空のことを指しているわけですが、まあその話はいいでしょう。さてこれで異なった歴史、異なった世界、異なった空間の中に別の自分自身が存在するということが分かってもらえたでしょうか。世界に自己は偏在しているのです。あなたと同様に私という存在も偏在しています。あなたも私と同じ単一から分かれた Y ですが、偏在する自己は一つになれるのです。あなたの知らないあなたがあなた自身と不可分の存在になれるとしたら、あなた自身が他のあらゆるあなたを把握できる位置に立って全てを見通せたとしたら、全てのあなたの体験はあなた一人の体験に等しくなる。あなたは本当の意味でたった一つの存在になる。
I let out a long sigh. Listen, can I ask you something?
どうぞ。
Why are you telling all this to me?
いい質問ですね。
Sora did a somersault in space and smiled.
伝説ですよ。このレミューの由来のレムリア大陸に伝わる伝説です。そういうことにしておいてください。内緒ですよ。
Sora held up one finger in front of her mouth, and then without a sound, she vanished. Okay, it was that scene again. For a while I just stood there lost in thought. There was doorbell ditching and eating and running, but I figured there wasn't a word like chat and run or debate and ditch. But that was exactly what Sora had just done to me. Oh well. Letting out a sigh, I made for the exit. As I walked, I reflected back on what Sora had said. Clones in dividing selves, walking in different times, simultaneous copies of Sora, the ubiquitous Sora. I wondered if Sora was just trying to say that everything was all the same. So maybe Sora, with all her incomprehensible and special attributes, not having oneself, was really not all that different. I wondered if that was what Sora had wanted to say. I wasn't sure. But I didn't see much use in thinking any more about things I didn't understand. That is when it happened. Squish. My foot came into contact with something soft. It felt as if I were stepping on a person. That's not a person, is it? One of my feet was standing on the kid's small back. Hey kid, are you alright? I kneeled down next to him and raised his body up.
Takeshi.
What do you mean, Takeshi? What are you doing collapsed in a place like this? The kid bounced up like he had been shocked.
ああ、そっか。僕、なんでか知らないけど、突然頭が痛くなっちゃって。それで、ここに倒れちゃったんだ。
Your head? That could be bad news.
うん、もう大丈夫。ちょっと眠ったら、すっきりしちゃった。
You sure? You sure you're fine?
でも、なんか背中が痛いかも。
I decided not to tell him I'd been slipping on it.
あとはお腹が空きすぎて胃がキュルキュルと鳴ってる。
I see. Well, if you've got an appetite, then you're probably okay, but maybe you should have Sora take a look at you. Healthy people don't just get headaches and collapse all of a sudden. Hey, are you listening to what I'm saying?
何が？もう、たけしは心配性だな。平気だってば。ただの貧血だよ、貧血。じゃなかったら、疲労か空腹か睡魔。とにかく、今は背中以外に痛いところはないし。
Yeah, I just can't bring myself to tell him I stepped on it.
そんなことよりも、早く売店行こうよ。僕、お腹ペコペコなんだから。
Saying that, the kid made for the exit, walking briskly. Shrugging, I watched him go. I was famished as well, but there was one more place I had to go before I went to the kiosk. Of course it was to see Tsugumi. Her surgery was done a long time before Sora's talk about W and Y, over 7 hours before I'd asked Sora about Tsugumi's condition.
40針ほど縫いました。全治2ヶ月といったところです。元のように歩けるようになるにはさらに数ヶ月かかりますね。小町さんには救助が来てレミューから出られるようになるまで安静にしてもらうことになるでしょう。
We were lucky that there was no damage done to her brain or organs. Only her right thigh was injured. Maybe only wasn't the best way to put it. In any case, she had a compound fracture and had a severed artery, and if we had taken any longer to treat her, she might have died up from blood loss. I was thankful to you from the bottom of my heart. I entered the infirmary. Tsugumi was sleeping quietly on the bed in the far side of the room. It wasn't my first time to visit her since the surgery. I had been in and out from that afternoon to evening again and again. Thinking about it, then it seemed to me that the reason Sora had suddenly called me and explained about the whole W and Y thing had probably been to take my mind off of Tsugumi. Her condition hadn't changed. She looked peaceful and was breathing steadily. A white blanket was covering her, and her foot peeked out from under it. She had a cast and a bandage wrapped around her right leg. It looked painful. The smell of medicine continued to assault my nose. The scene was fairly raw, with traces still visible of where blood had been wiped away. I reached my hand under the blanket and gently took Tsugumi's palm in my hand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. All I could do was repeat that mantra over and over to resting Tsugumi. After eating dinner at the kiosk, the four of us, you, Coco, the kid, and myself, moved to the rest area. The kid started.
Hi, hi, 待って待って。
The kid was chasing Pee-Pee around as they wove around the statues. They all looked like they were having fun. You decided.
ちょっと私空の様子見てくるね。
To head for the control room. Coco. Huh? I didn't see Coco anywhere. I decided to look into the nearby kiosk. But she wasn't there. No one was. I emerged in the corridor. Squinting, I looked down the corridor to where it came to a T, only there was no sign of anyone. Nearby was the entrance to the Lemurian ruins. The door was open. I could hear a small splashing sound coming from the area. I entered the room as if it were inviting me in. Coco was standing in the center of the room. She was standing on a stone that was just above the water's surface, her feet together. Coco. Coco lifted her face. She looked lonely. I approached her. What are you up to? Coco just stood there silently, eyes on the surface of the water. Looking closer, I saw that she was clutching something in her left hand. Then Coco took that something in her right hand and let loose with it, tossing it into space. Splish. With a light splashing sound, that something hit and sank in the water. It disappeared amidst a circle of expanding ripples. Swish. Coco threw something again. There was a small spray of water. The light's reflection on the water shook uncertainly. Splish, splish, splish. Just as the waves were about to die away, Coco launched something into the water, but the area was dark and I couldn't see what it was. Hey, Coco? What is that? Coco opened her hand and showed me. In her palm were tiny pebble-sized pellets. I wondered if they were glass. They were transparent, shaped like water droplets. They were shaped like crystal teardrops. That is how they looked. It was as if she had a handful of tears. Glass tears? Coco flicked one of them with the tip of her finger. Splish. And that tear sunk into the water.
ここね。つぐみんのこと考えてたんだ。
Coco said that, ignoring my question.
ここのせいなんだよね。
What?
つぐみんはここのことかばってくれて、ここのこと助けようとしてくれて、だからつぐみんは
Coco's shoulders shook.
本当なら怪我しちゃうのはここだったはずなんだ。つぐみんが助けてくれなかったらココは死んじゃってたかもしれないんだ。
Splish. The tear traced an arc through the air before falling in the water.
怒ってるかな。
Don't be silly. Why would Tsugumi be angry with you? Even if she were angry with anyone, it would be me. I mean, my carelessness caused everything. I'm the one to blame. I thought that the sadness Coco was feeling, that was all my fault as well.
違う。タケピョンのせいなんかじゃないよ。ココがいけないの。ココのせいなの。ココがぼーっとしてたから。つぐみんはココの身代わりになって。
Coco let the tears she was holding fall, scattering below her. A burst of white spray erupted from the water surface below her. Jumping off of the rock, Coco came bounding into my chest.
つぐみんのとこ謝りに行く。ごめんなさいって言いに行く。ごめんなさいって。ごめんなさいって。
Coco continued to bury her face in my chest, crying. Coco's tears seeped through into my skin and into my core like rain falling on my heart. Cold rain. The many ripples on the water continued to fan out, never disappearing. Coco and I went to the infirmary. Inside, the room was silent. We approached Tsugumi's bed carefully so as not to make a sound. Sugumi's eyes were open. She turned her face toward us.
何？
We came to see how you're doing. How are you?
ご覧の通りよ。それ以上でも以下でもない。
I see.
要はそれだけ？
No. I didn't know how to say what had to be said. I didn't think that just saying, I'm sorry, and bowing my head would get my feelings across. I wanted to choose my words carefully. But...
ココね。すぐに謝ろうと思って。
Coco opened her mouth before I could speak.
謝る？だって、すぐには、ココのこと、助けてくれたから。だから、ごめんなさいって、言わなくちゃいけなくて、それから、ありがとうって、ごめんなさいと、ありがとうを、ココは、すぐみに。
Coco's voice shook and she almost sobbed as she tied her words together.
バカな子ね。
Sugumi's expression hinted at a smile.
ありがとうなんて言わなくていいのよ。もちろん謝る必要なんかもっとない。ココは何も悪くないんだから。でもお願い。そんな悲しい顔しないで。
Sugumi extended one of her arms from the bed. She touched her palm to Coco's cheek.
すべては怒るべくして起こったの。誰のせいでもないの。
I had never seen Sugumi be so nice, so gentle. Her piercing gaze and sharp tongue. They could have belonged to an entirely different person. For an instant, I wondered what would have happened if I had come to see her alone. Maybe Sugumi was opening up to Coco.
ねえ、ココ。あの時のことを思い出してみて。ココにパイプを押さえるように頼んだのは誰だった？それは私が頼んだの。ココがあの場所に立ってたのは私が指示を出したから。つまり私のせいなのよ。そんなこと関係ないよ。そうかもしれない。関係ないかもしれない。だとしたら私がココを突き飛ばしたことも廃材が崩れ落ちてきたことも誰の責任でもないということになるでしょ。物事の因果関係なんてそんなものなのよ。原因をどんどん突き詰めていっても無限に広がっていくだけ。原因の原因は何？そんなことを考えても意味がないと思うね。だから私は言ったの。全ては起こるべくして起こったって。それにね、私があの時したことは犠牲者を最小限に食い止めるための極めて合理的な決断だったと思う。ココは助かった。私もこうして今でも生きている。だったらそれでいいじゃない。私の言ってることわかる
？After thinking it over for a while, Coco nodded without much confidence.
今はまだわからなくてもいいの。こんなことを理解するにはあなたはまだ若すぎるから。とにかく自分を責めないで。ほら、そんな泣きそうな顔しないの。
Sugumi gently pinched Coco's cheek with her
いい？
fingers.
わかった？
Coco furrowed her brow and gave a solid nod. Looking for a good time to chime in, I finally found my voice. Sugumi had said it was all nobody's fault, but I still felt I had to apologize to her. I was the one that created the opportunity that made the accident possible.
どうしたの？
Sugumi's expression was as mild as before. Sugumi, just as I was about to say I was sorry, The shrill scream of a warning siren rang loudly in my ears. What's that? Coco's face went pale. Focusing her eyes on one point on the wall, Tsugumi raised her body up. Wait, Tsugumi, what are you doing?
調べに行くのよ。
Stupid, you have to rest. You can't go moving
大
around.
丈夫よ。このぐらいの怪我なら。
No big deal. You are really something. I can't believe you're so stupid. Just stay here and take it easy. I'll go check things out.
でも。
No buts. Got it. I don't want you moving an inch because you do. If you do, right? What? Because you do, and you have to deal with me. Okay. I put my hand on Tsugumi's shoulder and laid her back on the bed. As soon as I figure out what is going on, I'll come back. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Saying that, I jetted out of the room. I dashed out of the infirmary. I looked to the left and to the right. Coco, trailing behind me, grabbed and squeezed my hand. Coco sounded scared. For now, we'll go to where everybody else is. I pulled along Coco as I ran. I headed for Dritstock. I descended the stairs in a blur. I peeked in the control room. No one was there. Kicking up water, I sprinted down the corridor. The alarm was still blaring. I strained to listen. I didn't hear the sound of seawater rushing in, or the sound of the partition squeaking under pressure. But there was something that I had heard in the gaps between the sirens. It sounded like rain, like water droplets pouring down on water, and the sound of the wind cutting through the sky. Why did Coco ask me that? Or when did... We were getting closer to the sound of the rain, I think. A low sound, it undercut the sound of the siren. Left to the corridor stood a gaping entranceway. Dashing into it, our eyes met with a surprising sight. A massive droplets were showering down from the ceiling. It was the rest area. The whole area was obscured in a fine mist, and smack in the middle of it. Sora was shining like a rainbow. We worked our way towards Sora through the rain, trying to avoid the moisture as much as possible. Coco and I were already drenched. Sora, what in the world? Sora looked up at the ceiling. I followed her gaze and looked upward. Among the countless particles of mist, something was faintly visible on the other side. Sprinklers? Sora just laughed. She didn't try to answer. Just then. You frantically came running into the room. She was holding a fire extinguisher in her hands. She already had removed the safety pin, had the nozzle aimed, and was ready to let loose with it. It was a pretty clumsy-looking attempt.
ご心配かけて申し訳ありません。ちょっとかわいそうだと思ったので。かわいそう？
Sora turned her gaze to the fire base on the ground. Was this all just to water the flowers? Sora just smiled. She didn't try to explain.
じゃあ、火事とか爆発とかそういうやつじゃないのね。ええ、本当にすみません。
But Sora's face didn't look like she was sorry. Rather, it looked like Sora was enjoying the droplets showering down from the sprinklers.
びっくりさせないでよ。警備室のモニターに火災警報が出たから慌てて飛んできたのにさ。
You replaced the nozzle with the fire extinguisher and the safety pin. Well, at least it was nothing serious. Better than the alternative.
まあね。そうだね。
Coco, you and I heaved a sigh and sat down where we were. The sprinklers hadn't stopped. Sora was staring at the flowers with a look of pity. It looked as if the grass and flowers were dancing, reveling in the newfound moisture. I looked around the room. I saw them. The kid and Pee-Pee were still running around the statues.
わーいわーい雨だ雨だ雨の中からやってくる雨にまみれた雨男少年レインは雨好きだグビグビグビグビ雨を飲むビクビクビクビク風邪ひくぞ今だやっつけろ賛成シャワー少年少年少年レインは雨んぼ号泣
The kid and Pee-Pee were running about in the downpour screaming out joyfully. It went beyond playfulness, it was close to pathological. I wondered if the kid has finally taken the plunge off the deep end. I clasped my hands together as if praying for his recovery.
雨が止んだら帰っちゃう小雨がちでも帰っちゃう土砂降りだとしても親戚の結婚式があると嘘をついて休むグビグビグビグビ酒も飲むビクビクビクビク公安に追われてる今だ逃げろ傘を忘れるな少年少年少年レインは雨降らしに触れないテレレレンテレレレンテレッテレチュワワワワン
It's raining! I was sitting at the tip of the whale's nose. Sarah was beside me. She covered her head with her hand to keep on. The drop was getting her wet.
これは雨じゃないでしょ。クジラが潮を吹いただけ。
I know that. I know it, but it looks like it's raining to me. Water, misty and drizzling, poured upon us from the sky. The stars reflected lights from the water droplets and emitted vibrant colors. We were in the cosmos. The whale was alive. At least it seemed that way to me. A whale swimming in the starry sky. His back surging like a wave, he undulated again and again. His soft mouth opened and closed and even puffed up time to time. About every 3 minutes, he blew out a warm breath through his blowhole. A seawater mist of spray would scatter around the area. Sitting at the tip of his nose, Sarah and I bobbed up and down in time with his movements. Although he undulated so slowly that we could let go with our hands and still feel safe. It was like a cradle rocking back and forth. On the back of the whale, we sailed through the cosmos. Sarah took the lighter from her pocket and lit it. The shimmering flame colored her face red. Okay, I might as well try to see if I can skip this. Sure. No. No, I cannot. She had the pendant in her other hand. The pendant was shaking in Sarah's small hand. It was the same one she had shown me in the small room in the warehouse. Hey, Sarah, I'm going to ask you again, but who is the man in the pendant?
それはもう教えたでしょ。
What? That he's from the sun? She handed me the pendant and the lighter, and I stared at the image closely. It goes without saying, but he seemed to look like a normal person. I had no idea how people from the sun were supposed to look, but the man in the image at least had the face of an earthling. He looked like any ordinary young man to me. Are you serious? He's from the sun? I asked her.
少年って本当に素直だよね。
What?
太陽星人なんているわけないじゃん。あんな炎の塊みたいなところに生物が存在すると思う？
So you were lying to me?
嘘っていうか、冗談っていうか、湾曲的な表現っていうか。
What's that supposed to mean?
さて、どういう意味でしょう？
Sarah stretched out her arm and put out the lighter. The darkness spread across the cosmos. I put the lighter and the pendant together, returning them to her. Just then, Sarah slid down the back of the whale without a word. I hastily followed suit.
このホログラム、外じゃなきゃ見えないの。日光が当たらないと見えない仕組みになってるんだ。だから太陽星人だって言ったの。
Sarah stood next to the whale and started talking.
小さい頃は本気でそう思ってた。太陽に住んでる人間が作ったから太陽に光がないと見えないんだって信じてた。で、このペンダントを持ってる私も実は太陽星人の子供で何らかの使命を与えられて地球に送り込まれたんじゃないかってそんな風に想像してたんだ。今考えればあまりにも幼い妄想だけどね。
Wait a second, Sarah. We're 103 feet underwater. Where is there any land? Sun! Sarah interrupted me and lit the lighter. Light filled the space around us. The flickering flame. Despite the insignificant size, the color of a sunset shone upon the dome-shaped ceiling.
太陽がなくても炎の明かりさえあれば見えるんだ。このことに気づいたのはだいぶ後になってからなの。10歳か11歳ぐらいの頃だったかな。
Really? Sunlight or a flame, huh?
ただし日光や炎があっても見えない人もいる。
People who can't see it?
私以外の人全員のこと。このホログラムの画像は私だけにしか見えないの。私だけにしか見えないはずだったの。でもね、つい最近この画像を見れる人が現れて。
Sarah put out the lighter. The darkness came rushing back. She flicked the light on again and put it out. She repeated this action a few times, then Sarah finally spoke.
君のことだよ。
My scar ached. The old scar on my left thumb.
どうしてだろうね。どうして少年にも見えるんだろうね。ねえ、どうしてだと思う？
Sarah looked upward into my eyes. She pushed the pendant and the lighter against my chest.
もう一度見て。
I took them from her. Striking the flame, I looked closer at the pendant. A weak 3D image rose dimly before me. It was a man who I hadn't even seen before. Looking at it this closely, I realized that a piece from the mirror was missing. A scar on my thumb, a piece to be filled in. I started to suspect the truth of the matter.
何か思い出さない？心当たりとかない？
No, not really. I was starting to realize, but I shook my head. My scar was itching as if an electric current were running through it.
そっか。
Sarah dropped her shoulders in disappointment.
ここに写ってる人ね。多分パパだと思うんだ。
What? You think he's your father?
そう。私と私のお兄ちゃんのパパ。
Oh. Huh.
パパってば。どうして無視するの？パパ。
Well, let me tell you. Because I'm not your dad, that's why.
でもパパのいない人はパパっぽい人のことをパパって呼んでもいいんだよ。憲法の伝文にそう書いてあるでしょ？
You don't say. Well, I've got 3 things to tell you. First, as far as I know, not one line of the Japanese Constitution corresponds to what you just said. Second, I'm not even close to being fatherly. Third, you've already got a dad who is still alive and well. So, stop calling me Daddy, Coco.
やだやだ。パパって呼びたい、パパって呼びたい、パパって呼びたい。
Forget it. I'm already taking a big hit with this stupid nickname, Takeshi. Don't make me put up with another one like Daddy on top of that.
パパの意地悪。
I just told you not to call me that. Coco growled as she glared at me. But I wasn't going to give in either. Coco and I stood face to face with each other on the verge of an outburst. As we stood there, I just couldn't help thinking to myself, how in the world did I end up in this situation? It had all happened 30 minutes earlier. As she was saying this, Coco shook my body hard, pried open my eyelids, and poured salt water into my eyes, and even shoved hydrogen peroxide up my nose. Giving in to her dogged persistence, I reluctantly decided to keep her company. Coco was still growling at me. She was just being outrageous. Coco chomped down on my arm. Ouch! I can't believe you actually bit me! I forcibly pried her face off of my arm. There were teeth marks on my arm, and the area started to turn a purplish red. Coco covered her mouth with her fist and giggled triumphantly. Why on earth do you want to call me Daddy anyway? You were telling me, after you trapped me into this, that a 20-year-old guy like me seems like that daddy type. You telling me I look old? You just thought I did somehow, huh? Well then, are you trying to say that your dad and I are alike? I should have been yelling at her by then, but I just couldn't bring myself to get angry with her, because all the while Coco was dancing around like crazy, shaking her hips and waving her arms in front of me. I guess you could say I was too distracted to be angry with her. By the way, you said your dad is on a business trip right now, didn't you? Where did he go? A research laboratory under the ocean? I don't know why, but for some reason it didn't surprise me. As a matter of fact, it seemed perfectly logical to me. It felt as if I've already known about it. It was just a feeling, but... Then you must be worried, right? I mean, about your dad, I asked Coco. Well, I mean... What? How do you know that? What? Huh? Coco had a big smile on her face. She was still performing her wacky dance. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Wow, that's great. I couldn't find anything else to say. powerful microwaves that Coco produced had shaken my brain and fried it. My consciousness started becoming hazy, as if I had been in bed for 3 days with a high fever. Oh. Wow, it's kind of hard to do that right now. I tried to imagine a high, clear blue sky, a nice May breeze, the horizon, the sun shimmering on the ocean surface. It had only been 3 days, but for some reason the scenery from the world outside felt so far away. I couldn't wait to go outside to the surface. Yeah, now that you mention it, I do want to sunbathe, but we just don't have that option right now. Besides, it's midnight anyway. Alright, we can do it tomorrow. Someone will probably have rescued us by then anyway. Coco! There was no way I was going to let this outburst go. I gave her a look that said, "I'm about to get angry," and Coco responded with, her shoulders drooped sadly. Instead, let's what? What? Earth to Coco, would you mind telling me what you're talking about? A few minutes later. Yeah. Dear father and mother, how is everything with you? I'm currently playing Chicks 102 feet under the surface of the ocean. Playing Chicks is an elegant game developed by Louis XIV. You win if you can mimic a chick the best. You flap your arms like wings and peck at garbage that has fallen in the corridors. Sometimes you even trip and fall like a cute newborn baby chick to compete to see who looks the most like a chick. The sounds used basically consist of 3 sounds, P, yo, and but as you get better, you can use imaginative sounds and even express yourself with various little chickadee gestures. Since I'm only a beginner, I can only use P, yo, and N so far. But I'm working hard to become a full-fledged chick. No, I mean a full-fledged chicken like mom and dad. I am learning from an excellent teacher. Oh, I don't know why, but I'm shedding tears. My teacher is encouraging me. I'm alright, I'm fine. My teacher wags her hips left and right as she walks. Sometimes she even flips her hips up in the air. She's the epitome of chickness. Father, mother, my teacher is the best chick mimic in Japan, no, in the world. Oh, but teacher, you didn't have to take a dump in the middle of the floor. Teacher is angry with me. It's because I spoke the human language. Yay! That meant I'm sorry in chick language. Yay! It must be very hard for you two to imagine your own son playing chicks 102 feet under the ocean. Or I suppose you probably don't even believe that I'm doing this in the first place. But I suppose I can't blame you. I would have never dreamed I would be in this situation up until 3 days ago. How interesting life is. How sad we humans are. Oh, there I go crying again. Before the ink on the paper starts to run, I will put down the pen. Well, dear father and mother, please take care of yourself. Pio Pio. Pio Pio.
Pio Pio.
That was the end of our game of chicks. I probably needn't mention it, but Coco won the game. Coco shouted with happiness and flashed a triumphant smile. Anyway, thankfully it was over. I exhaled a long sigh of relief. Are you happy now? Let's get some sleep now. Coco and I started to walk. Coco walked holding my hand. Her hand was so very small. Daddy, huh? I thought to myself. Coco had wanted so bad to call me Daddy, but it seemed that she had forgotten all about it. I was relieved. But at the same time, I felt a bit lonely. Daddy, huh? I repeated the words to myself again. I had mixed feelings. Coco and I went to the infirmary hand in hand. It was Coco's turn to use the bed in the infirmary tonight. We were outside of the door. For some reason, Yu was standing there. Yu had a grin on her face. Of course, the one who was embarrassed was me. Burning hot blood surged from the pit of my stomach to my head. All of a sudden, my face felt like it was engulfed in flames. I don't know what the heck you were talking about. Right, Coco? You wiped away the sweat that had appeared on her forehead with the back of her hand. Coco ran off to the infirmary, gesturing like a chick. You and I were left standing there. We stared at each other. Well, you see, she has fun, okay? I'm serious. Me either. Yu was frowning, but her face started to soften as I watched. Yu was trying hard not to laugh by pressing her hand on her mouth. She was probably recalling my antics from earlier. I had a bad feeling. Hey, Yu, I've got a favor to ask. Can you just forget what you saw tonight? Well, I suppose. Then you don't have to forget it, but would you always keep it a secret from Tsugumi, Sora, and the kid?
そうね。黙っといてあげよう。しばらくの間は。
What do you mean for a while?
もしかしたらいずれ役立つことがあるかもしれないし。
What do you know? She wanted to use it at blackmail me.
まあ、そういうわけだから倉谷くん。分かってるね。よろしく頼むよ。
He patted me on the shoulder and walked away. I had no idea what she would ask of me, but I knew she had where she wanted me. Of any of the 5 people that could have seen us, she was the worst. I shook my head with a sigh and opened the infirmary door. Awesome. Bye.